morning, YouTube. Good afternoon, YouTube. Ty Metalhead Weatherman here. Probably going to see this video in the afternoon for most of you, but some of you it'll still be morning, so just trying to be inclusive here. It's also been a while since I've been on, I know. I've been super busy, so apologize to anyone that's been looking for me as of late. It's been a rough week of work, so just trying to get through that. But that being said, got a lot to touch on today. Starting out with today's enhanced risk. We also have multiple slight risk after that point too as well, so we're going to be keeping an extra close eye on that. We have this enhanced risk mainly driven by wind and hail here, especially over towards Oklahoma and Kansas line. We also have the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas in there too. So pretty much from Tulsa and areas off westward, we're going to be looking at increased threat for damaging winds, maybe even some above hurricane force gust. Hail threats a little bit more so towards Colorado, but parts of the panhandles here and also even parts of western Kansas are under the gun here. Could see some hail, maybe even greater than 3 inches across this region tonight. And then of course there's a tornado threat. We have the 2%er here, but then we have two 5% areas that developed here. We've been it's been kind of interesting. We've been watching over towards South Dakota and parts of Nebraska as of last night. We were looking at some model data on Discord late last night, and we were kind of going over this area. We were pointing this area out as a point of interest, and then of course over towards Indiana and Illinois here. That's another area we've been watching. This 5% area, by the way, does include the city of Indianapolis here, so we will be going live covering these areas. I don't have an exact time yet. We probably will get one put together just after the time this video is done. So that being said, just make sure that you can pop in for that if you can, especially if you are in one of these areas of interest today. As far as day 2 is concerned, because we're also doing a weekend forecast, very widespread area of severe weather possible too. I'm especially concerned more so towards southern Illinois here and parts of eastern Missouri as well. Maybe even parts of Kentucky too. We'll be looking at maybe an increased threat. I don't know if they're going to upgrade this to enhanced risk or not. We'll have to see. I kind of want to say they might, but I'm not entirely confident in this. There's a few fail parameters with this in particular that leave me uncertain. There's a good model agreement though, so I'm pretty confident that we'll get some pretty notable storms over here towards Missouri, parts of Illinois here. There's also a sleeper type situation going on over here towards Iowa and Illinois here, maybe even parts of northern Missouri too, where there could be a marginal tornado threat. Interestingly enough, there's actually a secondary area over towards Cleveland and Pittsburgh that we need to be keeping an eye on too. But the main threat's definitely going to be wind. Wouldn't be surprised to see if this may get upgraded to a 5% area here just to the east of Des Moines. We'll see what happens. But we'll go ahead and go to day 3. No look on the hazards because we're over 48 hours out, but seems like we're going to be dealing with this MCS type setup tomorrow, or Monday, excuse me, and we're looking at a lot of people under the gun here, well over 40 million. And this even goes through DC, Baltimore, Philly, and even stretches into the southeast. We have Nashville in there as well. I think some of these storms might be persistent earlier into the day more than anything. Maybe later in the day it'll be a little further off to the east with some potential redevelopment. But we'll be keeping an eye on this. We're mainly going to put focus on today and tomorrow in particular. As far as Monday and day 5 are concerned, not really much I can cover at that point. Model data is a little bit more limited the further out you go. I am concerned about St. Louis and Jefferson City once again with day 5, and I think that would be Wednesday if I'm correct. Yep, Wednesday into Thursday. So we'll be keeping an eye on this area for severe weather, also keeping an eye on that area for flooding because these guys have been hit really hard as of late. And then also today we have South Dakota that we'll need to be watching as they now have a moderate risk of flooding here too. Also seeing St. Louis back in that slight risk is not good because recently there was just a high risk around that area. So to see that again along with the moderate risk that they had before as well, definitely not what we're looking for here. Boston's been hit pretty hard with rain recently. To see them in that slight risk is not good news as well. And then tomorrow, of course, we're looking more so towards Indiana, Illinois, maybe even parts of Iowa too, and then over towards the northern Great Plains here. Definitely not a sight that you want to see after seeing a moderate risk is more rain potential. So looking on from that point though, as of right now, there's a couple isolated pockets of slight risk from days 3 through 5. 4 and 5 right now look like they're going to be marginal, but I do expect some upgrades with that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the models here. We're going to start out from looking at the highest level of atmosphere that I can get here. This is 200 millibars here. Time frame is right here in the left-hand corner. Top left-hand corner, I should say. Here's a look at tonight's setup. Pretty solid setup here, considering we have this jet streak that's starting to develop here. The timing of where this develops could also determine just how strong the winds may get. There's also other factors as well. But to see this jet streak starting to kick in, it's definitely a tell right there as far as severe setup is concerned. Where this there's going to be a low pressure that pops up over here towards Iowa and Illinois here, and that counterclockwise spin over there, along with that clash point of the warm and cold air masses, is going to be a point of interest. I also think that that's going to help increase the tornado threat because of that directional veering. So definitely something to keep a close eye on there. As we go into Monday, here's the setup coming into play there. Like I said, definitely leaning towards more of a damaging wind setup. It's probably going to be on the forward flank of this. And then from that point on, we're just kind of blind as far as anything beyond that point. Like I said, I'm not going to really get into day 5 until we get a little bit closer with that. If we look at the rep here, it's pretty similar to what we're looking at on the NAM. Like I said, jet streak develops and actually has a little bit more of a southerly push here, which I find interesting. It's kind of hanging more off of that ridge, and also it kind of lags a little bit further back, or the stronger parts of said jet streak. But still, the fact that we're getting close to over 100 knots here is still more than notable enough, and will probably help aid these thunderstorms into becoming a very powerful MCS tonight. So we go into tomorrow here, it's a pretty similar look. See the convergence going west to east here. Here's the divergence setup here. It's not quite as impressive as it was last night, but still definitely notable enough. So we'll watch that head on out of here as we head into Monday morning. And then, of course, we'll probably see the squall line begin to develop probably early into the morning and really ramp up later into the afternoon and evening across the northeast in particular. So looking at the 3-kilometer NAM here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at how things really start to ramp up here at this level of the atmosphere. You can see this mid to upper level low beginning to develop as we head into Sunday in particular. And then we'll see this really start to dissolve into a little bit more of a weaker trough. But as it's dissolving, we'll probably see that damaging wind threat definitely increase on Monday. As far as the HRRR is concerned, it's a pretty similar deal. A little bit more limited on the time frame here. Like I said, pretty similar look from what I can see here. Not quite as impressive on 500. With that setup is today is what it would be on 200, of course. Towards 700, we'll probably see it start to ramp up more. Similar deal Sunday. Low pressure develops. Got that counterclockwise spin emerging across this part of Iowa, Illinois, and even parts of northern Missouri here. Not really going to get too heavy into the soundings here, but we do have to keep an extra close eye on this here. I picked the wrong time frame here. I think this is going to actually really be developing more so around 3 p.m. Eastern for me. So probably will be a little bit earlier in the day when the severe setup starts to really ramp up here. Here's a look at a severe sounding here. Definitely leans a little bit closer towards that downdraft type sounding. D-Cape is a little bit lower than I was expecting, but as far as instability is concerned, as far as lift is concerned, this definitely is not looking like a super impressive tour sounding. There is decent low-level kinematics here based off of what I'm seeing on this sounding here as far as the low levels are concerned, but Like I said, nothing super notable at the time. Interesting to see these significant hail soundings, but I'm definitely thinking damaging winds is going to be king on this setup. So let's go ahead and go all the way to the end of this run here. And like I said, it's pretty much a similar deal from that point. You can look at it from 700 at this point. This is where the low really starts to show itself at this point, between 500 to 800 here. Here's today's setup. Don't really have a super pronounced shortwave here, but we do see something really interesting forming right here, and this is, like I said, going to be what's the catalyst behind the South Dakota tornado threat, and also just the flooding threat in general. Then as we go forward here, we'll see this low begin to weaken here over this region towards eastern half of the Missouri Valley and the northern fringes of the Mississippi River Valley. And then of course we'll see this develop into more of a squall line type situation. Looking at the NAM 3 kilometer, it's going to be a pretty similar deal. Like I said, there's pretty good model agreement between these two, so there's not much I really need to show as far as discrepancies are concerned. Really, it was going to be more so towards 200 and 500. But nonetheless here, these are two very reliable models when it comes to severe weather, especially like the HRRR, but I always try to incorporate as much data as I can into these videos. Try to come up with as accurate of a forecast as I can. It's not always easy to do that, but I will try to do this for you folks. Anyway, as far as the setup tomorrow is concerned, I think really towards the tri-state line between Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa here would be my point of interest. We're mainly looking still at a severe setup here. Regardless, like I said, tornado threat looked a little bit more impressive in early runs earlier this week, but I think now we're starting to gain a little bit more clarity here. We'll see what happens. I'm also interested in seeing how this plays out for Canada too, as far as the setup's concerned here. Maybe even towards Toronto, we might have to keep an eye on this. If I see something on there, I'm going to try to make some posts about that too. Looking at 850s, like I said, today's setup not super impressive across western high plains. It's really going to be more so across South Dakota and parts of Illinois, Iowa. You can clearly see that there. And then here's the setup for tomorrow. It's, like I said, towards the tri-state line, maybe a little further to the south. We might have to keep an eye on that. Maybe even the tri-state line between Illinois, Kentucky, and even Missouri here. We might have to watch that. But like I said, a lot of factors are coming into play for that, so we have to keep an extra close eye on that. If we look at 850, it's going to be a pretty similar deal across the board. So I'm just going to let this load here, and then we're going to do a similar loop. Like I said, not a lot of model disagreement here, so that's helping with the confidence just a little bit here. Like I said, one thing I've noted with the RAP and the HRRR, because they are sister models, is that in comparison to the NAM models, we're definitely seeing a little bit of a lag in timing with this. Both of these are 12Z models, by the way, but we'll see if the RAP and HRRR end up going on board with the NAM or going its own way. But like I said, it's a pretty similar look across the board here. As far as temperatures are concerned this week, and this is for the whole country in general, with that storm system, it's interestingly enough definitely going to really bring those temperatures down a bit. I'm going to put this into pretty fast motion here. Here's that storm system coming in with its counterclockwise flow, and after that, the temperatures definitely seem like they drop off notably. We'll see how that persists throughout the day on Monday, but for the weekend, this is definitely going to cool you off just a little bit. I wish we could say the same for some other areas, because some areas have been getting hit really hard with this heat too. Been a lot of heat advisories. I'm hoping deaths have been remaining low, but given how hot it is, I don't know. Let's hope for the best on that. You can definitely see where our storm systems are going here, and we can also see when these storms start firing, because the temperature will dramatically drop over these areas here. So it looks like actually the severe threat It may end up being a little bit later in the day according to NAM 3 kilometer for Monday, so definitely something to keep a close eye on with that too. We look at the moist sector. We've pretty much have not had anything that's really shut off the Gulf of Mexico all year. We can see the 80-degree dew points even off the Gulf Coast here, where there also was a slight risk of flooding sometime this weekend. I think tomorrow actually was the day. But you can pretty much see it here. Storm systems present on the map here. Plenty of strong moisture flow coming in from the surface here. And like I said, maybe towards this tri-state line here towards Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, we may have an increased tornado threat as we head into Sunday night or Sunday afternoon. We'll see what happens with it. Pretty much across the HRRR, it's a pretty similar deal. But just for good measure, we're going to go ahead and look at it. And there's the loop. Moisture kind of is a little bit further out ahead too. That's another interesting little discrepancy between the two models here. Very similar outcomes, but like I said, timing is everything with severe weather, so to see that going on is definitely an eye raiser to say the least. Last but not least, we'll look at the parameters, and then we'll look at the country as a whole as to what the radar could look like this weekend. Alright, so now we're looking at the Cape here for the weekend. Across the board here, like I said, it's not going to be a super ample setup for Cape. This isn't a super classic severe weather. If anything, it's a little bit more reminiscent to a cold core setup. It kind of is, actually. I don't really have any height anomaly maps on here to show you, unfortunately, at the moment, from none of these models. So, unfortunately, I can't really get too great into detail here. I may do a little post talking about that as well, but from what I can see here, as far as tonight's setup is concerned, do have ample Cape over here in the mixed layers, at least up to about 2,000. Towards the surface, the Cape is going to be a little bit more rich, but even so, it doesn't look like there's much to really go off of there. It's going to probably be at best maybe 3,000 joules per kilogram. Of course, as we know, severe weather often tends to uptrend out of nowhere later into the evening. So we could easily see this get up to about 3,000 to 4,000 at the surface. So this is the Oklahoma Panhandle later in the day. Like I said, still struggling to get up to about 3,000 joules per kilogram at the surface. 2,200 towards the mixed layer. I always like to use the mixed layer personally more simply due to the fact that we can see all levels of the atmosphere instead of the surface, because the surface could be piping hot with Cape, and then the mixed layer will look like junk, and this can sometimes limit severe weather as well. As far as Illinois, Indiana is concerned, southern Illinois looks like a hot spot for sure right here at this point. This is towards 20Z, so this would be about just after lunchtime here. Definitely looking like more of a severe setup here based off what I'm seeing on the hodograph and other indicators here as well, but Cape's definitely a lot hotter over here, getting closer to that 4,000 joule mark, which is an explosive environment. And then as we head into Sunday, it's a pretty similar deal. We see increased Cape potential over here towards this tri-state area, but I'm thinking that secondary area is going to pop up here. Here's a good tour sounding right here. It's going to see a little bit of an easterly component with this setup here. Decent low-level shear with this one. There are some limiting factors here. The level of shear is kind of weak. Storm level felicities are solid though, so that's definitely something to keep a close eye on too. But as far as tornado potential is concerned, it's not incredible, but it's definitely not a zero, that's for sure. And then right where that low starts to dissolve here, maybe we could see it shift towards this region here. This could be a secondary area of interest. Right now it looks like it's mainly going to be staying towards severe, and there's also a lot of convective inhibition here towards the surface, so some questions there also remain. And then as far as time goes on, tomorrow, or Monday, excuse me, starting out, instability of course will be low, but will pick up later into the day, especially seeing an increasing surge across the southeast here. We'll have to keep an extra close eye on that. Looking at the NAM, it's going to be a pretty similar look. I'm going to run this into a loop. Cape is a lot more explosive with this one, I've definitely noticed, but that's to be expected. The NAM does show a little bit more extreme, the more extreme side of the setups, which is good, so you can find a nice happy medium in the forecast here. But from this right here, we kind of hope this doesn't happen, because this can help aid the severe weather threat, in particular with tornadoes. So definitely something to keep an extra close eye on, because we're seeing more areas with 3,000 joule potential over there, and then up to about close to 4,000 over here towards Oklahoma for tonight. So like I said, always have to watch this stuff very closely. So the last couple things we're going to do is take a look at where our severe weather potential is going to be highest and go from there. So last but not least, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the composite reflectivity. This comes with a little bit of a twist though, because whenever you see these little dark lines, these little streaks right here, these are what you would call updraft helicity. When you have a stronger updraft helicity greater than 75 meters squared per second squared, usually the severe weather threat increases notably. So here's our setup for tonight. This is across the west central and southern parts of the plains here. Start out mainly as a discrete line of storms, but eventually this does try to congeal into a little bit more of an MCS. It's rather disorganized at this point. And then of course, as we head into tomorrow, we see that low pressure come into play, that counterclockwise flow, and then here's some of the storms developing here. You have to keep an eye on damaging winds and tornadoes with this. And then when we look at the NAM, it's a pretty similar deal across the board. We also are going to take a look at South Dakota, excuse me, after this. Sorry to anyone that lives in South Dakota. I did not mean to botch that. But we do see a little bit more of a linear look with these storms that are coming out of that region here. So we'll start out with a tornado threat and maybe even end out with a damaging wind threat as well. And then here's that low pressure coming in again. And then this definitely takes more of a linear look later into the evening. So damaging winds definitely looks like the biggest factor in play there for sure. Then of course Monday we have that look, and then also even a few severe storms could be possible over here too. So definitely something to keep an eye on there. You may see a marginal or even a slight risk pop up there. Anyone that was looking for a closer look over here towards North Dakota and parts of Nebraska here, here's a better look from the NAM. Still see it's pretty much a similar deal. It's the same model, same look, just a little bit closer look to your potential area if you're from these areas, of course. This is HRRR here, then here's the NAM. Pretty similar look across the board. Here's that line of storms coming in from tonight. A few supercells are possible early. And of course, as we go on, we'll see this congeal into a squall line heading into Monday. And then last but not least for everybody, this is what we're dealing with over the next 60 hours possibly. So here's our low pressures here. This is what are going to be causing our severe storms. Could be isolated storms over to the southeast throughout the course of the week. And then, of course, could be pockets of showers and storms even towards the northwest here, which would be nice for them because I know they've been baking all year, it seems like. But outside of these areas, we're going to mainly be staying dry to start out the weekend. Towards the end, of course, northeast, we know about the severe weather threat, especially heading into Monday. So that being said, that's pretty much the end of this video. Again, hope you found it useful. If you did, you know what to do. Smash the like button, decimate the subscribe button, and hit that share button too. Try to get this information out to as many people as possible. We'll be going live later today to cover severe weather and probably also going live tomorrow. So with that being said, hope to see you there. Until then, this has been Tyler Metalhead Weatherman signing off. See you guys in the next video. Till then, take care, stay safe, and have an awesome day.